Hello guys and welcome to my channel. Today we will be talking about tanking Hateful Entity. Over the last couple of weeks I've gotten several requests asking me to explain the basics and maybe share some tips and tricks, so I decided to record this video. So in the beginning I will cover the basics, and afterwards I will show you a recording of me actually tanking Hateful, and then I will cover some specific details. Before we start, I am known in the community as Elitka. I've tanked Hateful around 70-ish times so far, I'd say, because I have roughly 15-16 crests, and you usually get a crest once every 4 kills, plus countless sail runs, so I would say I'm qualified to provide some insights on tanking this boss. Let's cover some basics. Hateful Entity is nightmare level difficulty secret boss located in Scam and Villainy Operation, or also known as Darvanis, and this boss can only be summoned and killed in a 16-man master mode instance. So the boss is located between the second and the third bosses of the operation. So to access it, you might want to get a lock. A lock could be a full instance lock, so after you kill Styrak, or it could be a third boss lock, so after you kill the second boss, Titan 6, you access the corridor where you can find a Hateful Entity. You don't need to kill the bosses or get the lock in a 16-man run. You can do it in 8-man, and the locks can be shared between 8-man and 16-man, and you can just kill Titan 6 with 8 people and then leave the instance, reset it, put the instance to 16-man master mode, and then you will be able to access the instance with 16 people and kill the boss. Let's briefly talk about the prerequisites. Hateful Entity does a very dangerous ability called Dread Touch, and to protect yourself against Dread Touch, you might need a mask. And this mask can only be obtained from Dread 2's boss, I would say a vault boss in Section X. So now you can see where roughly it's located. The boss is like circling around in a set pattern. And to kill basic Dread 2's, you would need a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS at the minimum. The fight takes quite a long time, but it's super straightforward. You might want to apply some stacks to Dread 2's and make a 3-stack Dread 2's, and it will drop 2 masks, but it doesn't matter. This is not the topic of this video. Every person, preferably you would have 16 people to attempt this boss, and preferably every person must have this mask on. You can buy implants and not implants. You can buy mods and enhancements from Hide and Seek, for example, and after you obtain your mask, you can just easily bring it to 332 or whatever item rating you have on Hide and Seek. It doesn't really matter. The boss isn't very demanding in terms of pure stats, so it's okay if your mask isn't like at the highest level of gear, provided that like the rest of your gear is good. For example, I never even augment my my mask. I don't feel like it's necessary. Everyone in the raid should have the mask equipped. You will see in the buff tray a buff that provides you against provides a shielding against Dread Touch, so the damage taken from that ability will be greatly reduced. It will just one-shot you if you don't use it. So the tank is the only person who does not really need this mask to be equipped, because Dread Touch is never applied to the primary target of Hateful Entity, and if you are the tank, so you are holding aggro of the boss most of the time, and it should never use this ability on you. However, I usually equip the mask just to be safe, because sometimes someone might accidentally taunt the boss, and then you will be the prime target for that ability. So better play it safe, don't risk it, and use the mask. After you get a crest, you can also transfer your mods to the crest and equip the crest instead of the mask. It doesn't matter at all. It's just a shell. So using a crest is also perfectly fine. After you enter the instance, let's say you have a Titan 6 lock, you can take the speeder. It will take you to the beginning of the corridor where Hateful Entity is found, and there you have to kill several packs of ads. Once you get to the stairs leading to a small room, you have to kill 5 ads that stand there, and you have to bring them to sub 20% at the same time. So you don't have to wait too much because it's very dangerous. Some of the ads have less HP, and if one of them dies, then you will have one more chance. But if you fail that as well, the instance is pretty much lost. You have to exit and reset the instance. So in my recording, we first mindlessly killed all the ads and failed to summon Hateful Presence, which is like spawns before Hateful Entity itself. So I hope I edited the video well enough that you can see how I bring more ads, the last pack of ads, into the room, and we single target the ads, bringing each of them to just under 20%, and once 5 of them are under 20%, they all instantly die and Hateful Presence spawns. Before I start talking about the boss, let's quickly discuss the group composition. Hateful Entity will target DPS and use that touch on them, so to avoid getting unnecessary damage, most groups currently use several Powertechs, because Powertechs have a utility which makes their threat drop apply a thing called Sonic Rebounder to all group members in the vicinity, and it reflects one hit for each person. So if you maintain 100% uptime on Sonic Rebounders, you will greatly mitigate damage taken, and it will be very beneficial. And honestly, I don't think I've seen recently any groups killing the boss without having several Powertechs. Usually people bring 4 Powertechs, and they just cycle. You have 3 main Powertechs cycling their rebounders, keeping 100% uptime, and 1 backup Powertech. You can also bring a Powertech tank as a 5th Powertech, or you can bring a 5th Powertech DPS. But there is a slight problem with that. A boss periodically applies a debuff called Death Mark. A Death Mark is a cleansable debuff, which can be of several types. Some of them run out after 2 or 3 seconds, and if the debuff runs out uncleansed, you instantly die. So that's why bringing Powertechs is a bit risky, because they are getting this Death Mark, and they cannot self-cleanse. Powertech is one of the few classes that doesn't have a self-cleanse ability. That's why we organize the frame usually in the following way. Frame 3 is 4 Powertechs in a row, in a column, and next to them, in frame 4, we have 4 healers. So each healer has a responsibility, let's say, to cleanse their corresponding Powertech. As soon as Death Marks go out, healers just cleanse their respective Powertech, and all other DPS that you bring, they have self-cleanse. For example, Marauders, Juggernauts, Assassins, they can shout it, they can endure pain it, they self-cleanse. Usually it's the raid leader or the tank calling out that Death Mark is happening. Everyone can usually see it, but for example, if healers are just healing someone, they are busy, they don't see the boss cast bar, so I just call out Death Mark is happening, and then you cleanse it. So if there is a 5th Powertech and there are only 4 healers, usually you bring 4 healers to Hateful, the 5th Powertech doesn't have a self-cleanse. Of course, you could hope that healers are smart and they will cleanse the faster Death Marks first and then the slowest Death Mark latest, but instead of that, you can mitigate it completely by running an assassin tank with a guard shroud tactical called Friend of the Force. What it does, it makes a Force Shroud also apply to the person you guard. So as soon as Death Mark happens, I shroud myself, and I also shroud the Powertech that gets the Death Mark. Also, in the group composition, it's kind of useful to have couple Marauders. At least one Marauder would be very nice, because first of all, an Animar can heal their frame. Second, of course, it's the raid buff. And third, predation is very useful, especially at one point in the fight in the corridor, which I will show a bit later. And also, sometimes the boss will pull us in, and it's a bit dangerous, so Marauders can just predation at that point. Everyone gets a speed boost, and they can easily escape. So it's talking about preferred group composition. In terms of healers, you might want to have one or two operatives, because operative has great AoE heals. Also, Merc is fantastic, especially with AoE shells utility. But I think we've done, even with 4 Sorks, it's perfectly doable. Just you need to make sure your healers are competent, but if you have an option, just bring at least like one operative, and then the operative will be just constantly spamming call to waves and healing everyone. I guess I'm not an expert healer, but that's what I think. Mercs are fantastic as well. In terms of tanks, all 3 tanks are viable for this operation and for this boss. Let me briefly talk about all 3 of them. First of all, I'd say the worst one is Juggernaut tank, which is a bit of a pity for me, since I'm a Jug main. Juggernaut has only one, I'd say only one big benefit on this fight. And this benefit is the taunt duration reduction on Enrage. It pretty much helps you hold aggro in the very beginning of the fight. You taunt, you AoE taunt, and then you use your Enrage, and both your taunts drop 5 seconds, I think, in their cooldown. So it means by the time your AoE taunt runs out, your single taunt will be back already. So usually I delay my Enrage a little bit after the 3rd taunt, so that the 4th taunt comes faster. And then, like, after 4 taunts, you cannot lose aggro in this fight unless some healer decides to overheal everyone, but we don't want to talk about that. Other than that, Juggernaut is, I guess, Mad Dash is a bit useful for the corridor, which again I will show later. But other than that, it's pretty poor because Juggernaut generally has a lower shield chance, and shielding is very important, as you will see in this in the video, in the recording. Shielding is pretty important because you want to reset the boss stacks. Sometimes when boss attacks you, boss applies to you stacks which go from like 0 to 20, and each stack increases the damage taken from the boss. It's not very dramatic if you add 20 stacks, but you will be damaged significantly more compared to having 0 stacks, and the healers will be a bit unhappy probably. So it's usually helpful to reset stacks. In 7.0, Juggernaut got a buff, I would say. Grid T's tactical was changed a bit, and now instead of resetting like reducing cooldown on Enraged Defense, you are resetting cooldown on Saber Ward, which is much better. And having Saber Ward uptime is pretty important for this fight, so Juggernaut is pretty viable for this fight, just the other 2 tanks are much better. The second tank I would discuss would be Powertech. It's just a good overall, like, all-around tank. Pretty nice damage, so easy to hold aggro. You just pop fuel in the beginning. You have a grapple. I use the utility with like extra threat on grapple, so in the very beginning I just grapple the boss, and the boss sticks to me. Also, a very useful thing is, of course, sonic rebounders that Powertech tank has. So for example, if we have 4 PTs, 3 of them will be circling through the rebounder, the force is backup, and I would be a backup. So it adds an extra layer of safety. For example, someone dies, they get up, we need to instantly give them rebounders just in case they get dread touched by a hateful entity. So Powertech is pretty solid, I would say. Also, hydraulics is pretty nice to avoid some pull-ins, and overall, I would say Powertech has pretty good defensives, and it is viable, and it has some shield chance. So completely viable option. But my preferred tank for this operation is Synth Tank for several reasons. First of all, Force Pull is a fantastic ability in the very beginning to hold aggro. Then it has a lot of move speed. It has like the 15% extra move speed compared to Jag Tank, just from the utility. So it's a bit easier to run around. Then Force Speed is fantastic to run through the corridor. Deflection is a useful cooldown, and you can reset your stacks if you time it properly. I think I will have an example in the video how to do that, so like when do you pop your deflection to reset your stacks. And as I mentioned, Guard Shroud. Guard Shroud is super important. In the videos that I do, we have 4 Powertechs and 4 healers, so technically I could have not used it. But I prefer to still shroud one of the Powertechs, and then the healer whose Powertech I'm shrouding is a backup cleanse. For example, if some of the DPS are slacking and they forgot to self-cleanse, this healer will always have a cleanse for them. So it's an emergency cleanse from that healer, and I will just shroud every time Deathmark happens, and my Powertech will never suffer from Deathmark. One thing about shrouding is that you have to really wait after the cast, usually wait like half a second to maybe even a full second, because sometimes some of the death marks get sent off, like they appear on people a bit late. And if you shroud too early, then you will shroud before the death mark, and it will be a bit dramatic. So don't like shroud exactly as the cast ends. Wait like 1 second, because the shortest death mark is like 2 or 3 seconds, so waiting precisely 1 second is not dramatic at all. So you see the cast complete on the boss, then you wait 1 second and you shroud. Okay, consider we discussed the group composition, we discussed how to get the boss, how to get hateful presence to spawn. Then you would need an orb, which I assume you know how to get it. You get it from Dreadful Entity in TFB 16-man hard mode. It's a secret boss, and it's a topic for a completely different video. I assume you have an orb you want to pull the boss. You have to, once you pull the boss, you get stunned. You use the orb on the hateful presence, you get instantly stunned, the presence becomes hostile. DPS can damage it, it doesn't really matter, but they can damage it to build up their stacks, and they can, I don't know, gain stacks. That's the only real benefit of attacking it. Like usually, even if I'm not pulling the boss, I just do nothing, because as a tank I don't really have any stacks. I just build rage on my Jag, I guess. That's the only thing that I do. Assassin or Powertech, I just stand pretty far. But the person who pulled the boss must be healed, because this person is stunned, they can't do anything, and they are being damaged. Not super heavily, but considerably. So if not healed, they will die. And if that person dies, the orb goes on cooldown. You cannot use it for 23 hours, I think. So essentially you won't be able to use it again for the same raid, and you would have to find a different person with an orb. So just heal that person, especially since healers have pretty much nothing to do during that part. So that's it about the preparation for Hateful, and now I will just try to go through the fight, and I will explain some of my choices. I picked up not the best pull, not the cleanest, just to illustrate what can go wrong, what can be done to salvage it, and so on. So I will be just essentially watching the video of myself killing killing Hateful, and I will provide some hopefully insightful comment on how to position it, where to position it, what to do, and hopefully it will be helpful for you. Okay, I managed to open the recording of our pool. So now I will go over all the details. As you can see, I am my character is a Marauder. I'm positioned on top left in the frame, and I'm guarding Powertech number 1. Like frame 3 is Powertech, so I'm guarding Mystichny Dispant. I guess like I'm not a professional at pronouncing, but apologies for my pronunciation. But I'm guarding that Powertech number 1 in the frame. So the healer corresponding, healer sign frame 4, Cheese Espresso is essentially a free cleanse, so they do not have to focus on cleansing their Powertech. They can cleanse whoever they want, and especially if someone like messes up, uses their self-cleanse ability as a defensive before and they don't have it available, then Cheese Espresso can easily cleanse them and avoid any drama. So as you will see, like we just have a ready check here. I'm targeting the Hateful Presence and I'm selecting the orb in my inventory. It's important to not accidentally click the orb on a person. If you click it on another member of your team, they will have a very cool effect around them, but the orb will go on 23-hour cooldown and it will not be useful anymore during the same raid to pull the boss. Here I somehow managed to target Hateful Presence, and once everyone is ready, I just pull the boss. I am instantly stunned. Luckily for the healers, I took the utility that reduces damage taken while stunned. It's not mandatory at all, especially since I'm a tank and I mitigate a lot of damage. But it's just like a pleasant thing for the healers. As soon as the boss is pushed, I run back. And I position myself more than 10 meters from where Hateful Entity will spawn. The reason is the force pull is a very strong aggro generator. So I want to make sure that the boss doesn't go on any DPS, so I open with a force pull from 10 meters. It is a bit tricky to find a position. For example, if you see the phase walk on the stairs, I don't think from that position I would be able to see the boss, because you have to have a direct line of sight to force pull it. But like over the last years, I found this spot which is hugging the left side of the stairs. It's a pretty good spot to open with a force pull. So a couple seconds pass, and here like I'm preparing myself. What happened? The boss spawns, and I instantly press tab and force pull, because sometimes if you have especially sword healers, some of their heals can switch the target, your target, to themselves. So, for example, if a healer X applies some heal to me and I have nothing selected, and obviously I couldn't have selected the boss before because it wasn't there, my target would have switched to them, and instead I would have tried to force pull the healer, which wouldn't work, and the boss would be completely loose. So what I usually do, I just instantly tab switches my target to the nearest enemy, and since there is only one enemy here, I just instantly switch to Hateful and I pull it, and as you can see, it instantly goes to me. And then I do my regular opener, and I stand in this far right corner of the room. This is the place where I'm placing the first red puddle. And general rule of thumb is that in this first room you are putting three red puddles, and also there will be the first cleanse death marks here. So here I do a bit of like several attacks. I'm using proc depredating vault, and here comes my second taunt. After I place the first puddle, the red puddle, which hurts a lot, I go to the far left corner of the room. Here I place another puddle, and I move a bit to the third corner, let's say, closer to the entrance. Here, as you can see, the first death mark is happening, and it means that after the cast is complete, over the next second, multiple DPS will get a cleansable Deathmark debuff. And as you see, I instantly shouted, and my Powertech, Mystichny Disband, instantly lost his Deathmark, so he will not die. As soon as the Deathmark goes out, the boss does the first pull in, and if you have hydraulics, if you are Powertech, you just pop hydraulics. For me, it doesn't matter at all. I'm a tank, I will survive this no matter what, but some DPS will take a bit of damage, so you get pulled in, you instantly run out, and then you go downstairs. So as you can see, I force speed here, and I position myself behind the rock. This rock is fantastic for several reasons. First of all, it's not on the way of your future tanking. Second, the rock itself protects you from being pulled in. The boss will try to pull me in, but I will bounce off the rock and stay in the same spot. As you saw, I was jumping because the boss is pretty far from me. I need to get a line of sight towards the boss, and I have to be in range. So here I do my taunt number 4, and this way I ensure that the boss is on me, because if you can see the raid thread at this point, some healers, because of their like huge overheal, especially as you can see Sapphire is healing a crazy amount, so he's topping the raid thread. Here this taunt guarantees that the boss will stay on me for the next several seconds while I'm pretty far and I cannot directly attack the boss. So here I taunt the boss starts going downstairs because I'm far, and I place my paddle here. Here some Marauder should pop a predation so that people run fast through this paddle and don't get too much damage from it. As my force pull comes off cooldown, I'm trying to use it, but here the boss managed to line of sight me. Usually it works, and this couple of seconds here is where I take a bit of damage. Because I'm far from healers, the boss is still on me, and I was running away the entire time, so I couldn't be healed for quite a while. So here I pop over Charge Saber just to survive, let's say, the next like 5 or 10 seconds while healers are arriving, and then it won't be a problem anymore. So here you get pulled, and then the boss places the red paddle. Sometimes the boss is a bit desynced and it first puts the paddle and then pulls you out. It doesn't matter, it will be fixed later if you do everything properly. I will discuss it a bit later, but for now you can see we are being pulled out. I run back into the corner and the red paddle appears. So it is important for me to always be kind of far from the group when placing the paddle. So I have to turn the boss away from the group. The boss also does a cleave every several seconds. There is a star parse timer for that, so you will never miss it. So in general, a good idea is to not face the boss towards the group. Here we see that I'm placing my second paddle in the middle of that wall. Essentially, this wall that you can see on the screen will accommodate like 3 paddles. The third one is in this corner where I'm standing. And again, we get pulled out, and red paddle is placed, and sometimes, as I mentioned, it will be the other way around in this stage of the fight. It will be a red paddle, then everyone will be pulled in, and people have to run out very fast. Usually at this point, Deathmark number 2 happens. Again, I wait a second, and then I cleanse my Powertech. That paddle happens, and here you could see the boss is desynced. It pulled everyone in. Rule of thumb is usually it is a paddle without pull in, then pull in, and the next paddle. Then another paddle without pull in, and next paddle. So in the beginning of the fight, the boss might be a little bit desynced. You have to play around that. Here, everyone gets pulled in and they just run away very fast. And my next position is a bit tricky here. You have to run a bit up the rocks to make sure you are rather far from the group. You will see where I'm standing. You don't have to go that far. I'm just trying to play it super safe. And here comes an important moment. If you can see my debuffs, they're pretty big. I have 12 stacks. This is a stack that boss damages me with. It increases my damage taken. So as soon as the debuff is halfway through, if I got lucky several times in a row and shielded that attack, I can pop deflection, and it pretty much guarantees that the boss won't hit me again, and the debuff will run out. So it is a bit tricky. You will get used to it, and it's not super important. It's just decreasing my DPS a bit, but it is perfectly healable even at 20 stacks. As you will see later, I will be a bit unlucky. I will probably reach 20 stacks, and it won't be a problem at all. So I pop deflection as soon as the debuff is roughly halfway through, or like a bit under, and it should reset. So the boss places another red puddle, and I remember that this red puddle was without pull-in, and the previous one was with a pull-in. It means that the next one will also have a pull-in. So I skip a bit of space, and I run up in this corner. This corner is also amazing, because if you put a red puddle there, you will not affect your future trajectory in any way. So I always try to go up as high as possible, and as you can see, my 12 stacks are about to run out as well. So everything is well, and at this point the boss pulls us out. I run back in, place the red puddle, and then the corridor begins. So let's see what happens there. I placed the red puddle and I start running. At this point I scream predation, and the Marauder has to pop predation. As you can see, on my buff bar we had a Marauder and a Sentinel, and they both popped their respective buff. So I have predation and transcendence. Sadly it doesn't sum together. I would be very fast, but unfortunately I can only use one of them. And I start running towards the corridor, and at the end I also force speed just to make sure I make it. And this is one of the critical points of the fight, because I'm far from the healers, they cannot heal me, and the boss is still attacking me while I'm running. So I'm running pretty low, and usually I just pop Shield Adrenal here. My goal is to line of sight the boss so that it has to come to the end of the corridor, and I'm placing a red puddle here behind the corner. So I hug the wall, and I'm perfectly alright. So after that I come back and stand between the two. I don't know what it is like, but you see on the walls there were two plates or something, and I just stand between them. That's a very good spot. I think I'm about to pop medpack, but no, I decided against it, and like, you don't have to do that, so it's okay. And at this point the boss is no longer desynced. As you can see, it first pulls us out, then I run back in, and then it places the red puddle, and this is good. If this is what is happening, then you are on the right track, and it should be perfectly alright. The group was pulled in, and then everyone runs back. I go to the tank position, the group stands behind the boss, and I put the red puddle, and no one gets affected by it. The remainder of the fight is rather straightforward in that regard. I just hug the same right, let's say, wall of the corridor as seen on my screen. Death mark just happened, I cleansed, and here comes the red puddle without a pull-in. Then again a pull-in happens, and I'm positioning myself properly to not place the red puddle on the group. After this, red puddle, you will see how I usually go. I go a bit further along the wall, then I wait for the boss to kind of start running towards me, and then I go back to turn the boss away from the group, in a sense, because the group will always stand a bit further down our trajectory than me. So I kind of turn the boss almost always away from the group to avoid them being cleaved, because occasionally, I think it's called hate pulse, you can see the timer, occasionally the boss does this very strong attack. So I will be using all these small holes and like crevices in the wall. Again, we were pulled. I run back in, and the red puddle happens, and then I'm pretty much transitioning to the next hole in the wall. The deeper I am in the wall, the less chance there is that I will cleave the group. So the next red puddle happens. Here, as you can see, I don't have much space left, so I decide to put one last red puddle here, and then I transition to the corner. Group was pulled in, they run away, the puddle happened, and I'm running to the corner. No, okay. Here I decided to actually save a bit more space for no reason. Death mark happened, I cleansed, and I'm putting one last red puddle here, and after that we go to the corner. If you have good damage, you don't have to save space like that, and here we had amazing damage, so I don't know why I did that. I guess I was being way too cautious for no reason. Here I'm going to this very tight corner, And it's very nice to put a red puddle in there because the group will never be affected by it, and it buys you some space. So as you can see, the boss just puts a red puddle, and the next spot is the pillar. You probably can't see it really well because it's dark in the room, but you just hug this pillar. It prevents you from being pulled in, like the group just got pulled in and I wasn't pulled out. So I just put another red puddle here, and now is a pretty tricky moment because this is probably the last big check. The group will be a bit damaged here because, as you see, there are many red puddles around, so it's easy for you to be accidentally pulled in. So I'm standing very carefully because I expect the next red puddle soon. I'm being slightly damaged, and here at the stairs is the next spot. The pull-in will happen, so it will pull people to the stairs, as you can see right now. So I have to run back, place the red puddle, and drop downstairs, and then it's completely fine. Death mark happened, another easy cleanse, no one died to it. And as you can see, the boss is super low, 37%. We had pretty good damage in the group. Normally, like with the average group, you would have like 45% here. Like, again, nothing significant. Remember, the boss gains pink stacks, as you can see. Now it's at 9 stacks, and the more stacks it has, the more damage it takes. It increases the boss's DPS, but at 15 you die. Like it gets 15 stacks, then it waits a little bit, and as it gets 16th, the group just wipes. But again, here it's not a concern at all. We are at 37%, which is pretty low, I would say. And here I'm getting ready to put another red puddle. So I put the puddle and I start running. Someone dies, something went a bit wrong for that person. It's very important that you don't go to the skeleton directly behind the pillar, because then the entire group would have to go through the red void. Instead, I take the boss for a slight detour, and then I position myself. Here I got pulled as well, but then I position myself in this skeleton, and this is where I put another void down. And then I keep hugging the right wall. For till the end of the fight, I will be just hugging this right wall. And as you can see, a couple people died, and we had a bit of drama trying to res them. But again, at this point, if you can see that the boss is at 30%, losing a couple of people is not dramatic at all. I'm just hugging this wall, and in the video you will see that I'm using some of the better spots, let's say. I really like this tiny hole here at the right side, and from now on, if you reach this corridor, the group starts going forward. They want to be as far ahead as possible while still, of course, damaging the boss. Then you can use either side of these jars on the ground to put the next void. Same applies to these two holes here. I prefer the right side. And this, at this point, you can see a ledge or basically mini stairs. I don't know. When you have to go onto the plate, you might be stuck sometimes. In the early days of my prog, I always struggled here. You have to time the jump, or you have to go through the left side. Then you can just go up without any issue. Don't panic here. Sometimes it's a bit tricky to get up. But as you will see, I'm just pulled in. I'm getting ready to put another void, and here I run on the left side because it's just safe. And here we have another very nice hole, which I decide to not use. I go slightly back for no reason. I just use the med pack just because I can. The boss is almost certainly dying soon. And as you can see, I'm on 20 stacks here. I was a bit unlucky with my shielding, so it's alright. Again, couple people die, doesn't really matter. At this point, boss is at 6%. I keep hugging the right wall, and it's always the same mini dance. I go forward, the boss comes to me, I come a bit back and put another red void. Death mark happens here, and after that I'm expecting the last void in this corridor. After that we go out into the room. Again, here the boss is at 3%, sometimes you will reach it, it will be at like 10-ish%. So you might be preserving some space inside the room. Here, like I have no reason to do that, but still we get pulled in. I put the void down and I go out into the room. So I stand behind this palm tree, and normally the fight would continue for maybe like 30 more seconds, and there would be still some voids around this right side of this room. However, here we already killed it, and we killed it just after exiting the corridor into the final room. So I think I covered all the important parts. Pretty much we saw the trajectory that I take. In the very beginning, the positions of the red voids, I would say, determined. You can't really change them too much. In the corridor, depending on your group, depending on available cooldowns, depending on the group damage output, you might want to save some space or like waste some space, because obviously it's much safer if you put large gaps between the red voids and the group doesn't get damaged so much. But other than that, the fight is pretty straightforward. It's just repeating same several actions many times in a row. Death marks you have to always cleanse. You have to not cleave the group with the hate pulse. And remember, the rule of thumb is a red void without pull-in, then there will be a pull-in and the next red void. So after the pull-in, usually a Marauder will use their predation so that all the DPS and healers can run away, and I can run back into my original position to place the red void there. In terms of cooldowns, again, I used my Adrenal, I used my Overcharge when I felt necessary. There isn't like a certain rule on how to use it. Deflection, though, it is very helpful once your stacks are about to expire. Not about, but like once they are like halfway through. I think that the buff lasts for like 30 seconds, so if it's halfway through, it's about 15, so you wait like 3 more seconds, and it's 12, and then you use deflection, and then it's guaranteed that the stacks will fall off, and you will start again from 0, which means lower DTPS. So I guess, yeah, that's it. It wasn't like the cleanest of killers. As you can see, we have several people dead, and we even have some cooldowns on revives on certain healers. But overall, still with enough damage, it really doesn't matter. We could have like spent, I think, another like minute or so, or even maybe more, on this boss. No, I think 30 seconds before enrage or something. The fight is normally 7 minutes 30. Maybe a little bit longer, might be mistaken. But other than that, the key takeaways is that Assassin is probably the best tank for this boss. Perfectly doable with the other two, just Assassin has a bit of extra quality of life that provides you with a bit more versatility, I would say. But overall, the boss is pretty straightforward. You don't have to memorize a ton of different mechanics. It's just this like 3 or 4 basic mechanics that you have to be consistent with, and after that it shouldn't be a problem. You just kill the boss, and every time you kill the boss it drops 4 crests, and for a group of 16 people you would have to kill the boss 4 times. So this is usually what we do, like every Saturday. Let's say we raid for like 2 hours, and in these 2 hours, usually less, we kill the boss 4 times so that everyone gets their crest. I guess that's it. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please contact me on Discord. I'm very happy to answer anything, or also leave comments on YouTube. Again, I would be very happy to answer any questions that you might have. And good luck with your hateful kills.